Hello. Howdy. How's your mam and them? It is Monday. What is tonight? Tuesday. It's Tuesday night. My bad. My bad. It's Tuesday night. Impromptu live Tuesday. And me and D Style are going to get together at some point tomorrow. Pause. And do a live and catch up on things, man. It's been one of those, like summer. It's just hard to get the routine with kids. Summer, kids, hard to get in the routine. So got to catch these lives and these podcasts when I'm able to do them. And it's one of those where I have some time this evening to talk about some things and a lot of stuff breaking. So let's get to some people. And it's going to be a chat show because I'm going to lean heavy on the chat today because I want to know what people are thinking about this stuff. I don't want to be up on my soapbox. I think we built the relationship up to this point, right? Where we can all speak freely with each other, safely with each other. We can have disagreements and still be friends after. And I feel like we have that relationship to where if we catch each other at fights, we'll throw back some cold beers, have some disagreements, and have some fun, and everything's fine. And today may be one of those shows where we have disagreements, and I want you to disagree with me in the chat. I want you to test me here. I want you to check me here. I want you to say, nope, Calix, I think you're wrong on that. This is what I think is going on. I want this to be one of those shows. Come after me. Your ideas should be tested always, and you should always be testing your ideas. And you should always open yourself up to people with differing opinions to see if your opinions hold up. And if they don't, then they're not worth having. Like why would I have an opinion if it's not the truth? And why would I keep going on with it if it's not the truth? And it's just one of those things, man. Like I don't know. So feel free in the chat. Let's have at it. Let's go after it. Nobody wants fake Nello versus bullying. There we go, right out the gate. Nobody wants fake Nello versus bullying. It's just starting right away. Jesus didn't waste any time. He's just like, we hate it. What's up to Mars? Surge, my guy Chicano, OG Blaze, Al Heyman protecting fake Nello, catering to him. It's going to be one of them shows, man. Anthony Sanchez. Okay, here's my take. Canelo can do whatever the hell he wants. He's earned it. There you go. There's another take. All right. And this is good. This is good. Let's get it out. Let's get it out in the open and have fun with it. And let's see where it goes. Let's see where it takes us. Much respect. Calix in the chat stopped in to show support and hit the like button. Just got off work. Tony Boswell. Shout out to him. I believe from the great state of Oklahoma, right? Didn't D-Style once disparage the great state of Oklahoma? I love Oklahoma. I love the people of Oklahoma. Looks like y'all have beautiful women there. Beautiful people. For whatever reason, D-Style just wants to disparage the great state of Oklahoma. And I love the people of Oklahoma. Love them. Calix, I don't. I can tell you I don't want the smoke. I don't. So don't even don't even. I don't. I want peace and prosperity. I just want to come on here and have a good time and talk boxing. I don't want any smoke. I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy to come on and do lives and then want to battle people. And it's just not one of those things. I don't want the smoke. I can tell you that, like right off the gate. I don't. But we'll see what happens. Still guarantee fake Nello pay or only make it by pay-per-view numbers. Who the hell knows, man? Nando, shout out to you. Salute Calix in the chat. I was thinking they may put Caleb Plant on the undercard. Possibly. And if people haven't heard, what's the guy's first name? Trevor, our guy Trevor McCumbee. I didn't know there was another white American fighter besides Caleb Plant, but they found one. His name's Trevor McCumbee, and he was supposed to fight him. He got cut. And Trevor McCumbee is so irreplaceable that they couldn't find a replacement for Trevor McCumbee on 4 weeks' notice. BBC. Trevor McCumbee was so irreplaceable. I think that's his first name, Trevor. I think his name is Trevor McCumbee. So irreplaceable that he gets cut and they can't replace him on 4 weeks' notice. And they couldn't elevate Stephen Fulton Jr. to the main event because you can't do that either. Because it's 4 weeks. It's like too soon. You can't do that. It's too. There's not enough time. So you just scrap the card. Because of course. And Stephen Fulton Jr.'s out. Stephen Fulton Jr.'s out there frustrated. It's like, dude, you shouldn't be over there. Like, we tried to warn you. We tried to warn you. You shouldn't be over there. Go somewhere else, like these other fighters. But you're still over there. Like, how do you expect to fight? These dudes have put on like 3 cards in 8 months, Steven. What are you expecting to happen? Good Lord. So Trevor McCumbie's too irreplaceable. You can't, fellas, you can't replace a Trevor McCumbie. You just can't do it. It's Trevor McCumbie with 2 C's, and the first C is lowercase, and the second C is uppercase. You can't replace that guy. You can't. You can't replace Trevor McCumbie. You can't do it. If that guy's hurt, you just got to scrap the whole card. You can't do it. You cannot do it. McCumbie's the real shot caller. This sport, man. I'll tell you what. This sport, for the laughs, for the comedic value, it just does it. I feel like if you approach the sport the correct way now, it provides value. If you approach the sport seriously, then it'll frustrate you. It'll damage you. It'll destroy your soul. But you come here and you realize that, all right, I'm gonna stick around for the comedic value, and from time to time we'll get some heat, we'll get some smoke, right? We'll get some fights. Then I think this is your place. I think it's good. I think it's good. And when they say Trevor McCumbie gets a cut and we can't do the fight anymore, we got to scrap the whole card. It's just like, yeah, that's the PBC. It's the PBC for you. It's a PBC. Appreciate the super chat, Nando. We're gonna get into, look, this is what I'm gonna try to hit. And look, I'm gonna have somebody on next week in particular who is gonna, I feel, do a good job. I've seen this dude talk about the business side of boxing. I think he's very good about the vision of it and the numbers and all that stuff. So I'm gonna have him on at some point next week to talk about some of this stuff and where I think this is headed, or I'm gonna pick his brain about where he thinks that this is headed with the Saudis invading the sport, and because I think a whole show needs to be done on just that and about these other promoters and what their role in the sport is going to be going forward, what networks are going to be involved, which ones won't. And I think he's a good dude to have on and talk about this stuff. But we're going to save that for when we can talk about the whole show, because there's Saudi news breaking, mergers, stuff like that. I call it a friendly takeover. You can call it a merger, a consolidation, and the consolidation has started. And no, it's not going to be Roberto Diaz, but this is a dude who he knows what he's looking at. So today we're going to talk about Junto. We're going to talk about Jake Paul, Erickson Lubin. But I know the stuff that y'all want to talk about, so we'll breeze through those things and we'll get to Munguia leaving Golden Boy, which is hilarious. It's just another one. I've been looking at my phone today and just laughing. It's like first I think it was Canelo Berlanga, and then it was Benavidez, and they're acting like they want the smoke at 175, right? They're treating it like this interim belt thing, man, is ridiculous. They're acting like this is an episode of The Bachelor, and it's who is Benavidez going to pick? Is going to be 168? Is going to be, which interim is he going to pick? Is he going to pick the 168 interim or the 170? It's like an episode of The Bachelor. And then Benavidez shows up at like 225 pounds and says, I'm going to pick 175, because like, duh. He's 225 pounds. So, of course, he's going to pick 175. But there was that. And then there's Munguia. leaving Golden Boy. Like, I love it because Munguia, he was out there. He was trying to be nice. He's showing Canelo respect, and they're about to fight. And then Oscar keeps flying up the top rope and making it about himself. And it's like, so I don't feel bad at all for Munguia saying I'm going to Top Rank. I'm out of here. I'm out of here. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Canelo versus Berlanga, or as Jesus called them, Bumlanga, and Benavidez moving to 175. Junto's top 5 pound for pound to me. I got him 5. He's number 5 now for me. He's right there with Bam. This dude's the real deal. 3-division champion. Knocks out Astro Labio with a gut punch. Beautiful, beautiful straight gut punch. And it was the first big punch landed in the fight. This dude has snap. He has power. He knows how to punch. And him, and in a way, I'm telling y'all, man, like if you look at punch placement and you look at the power, that fight right there, I'm just telling y'all right now, that fight right there, Inoue versus Junto down the line at 122, good Lord. When that fight develops late 2025, early 2026, it's going to be the biggest fight in boxing. It's going to sell out Tokyo Dome. It's going to do astronomical numbers, and it's going to be the biggest fight in the sport. And I'm telling y'all need to wake up as far as what is going on in the sport. If you look at basketball right now, Team USA is basically beating South Senegal. They barely beat South. Is it South Senegal? Is that the name of the team? And then I was watching yesterday, they barely beat Germany, and I'm making money off of Team USA not covering these spreads because they're favored by like 43.5 and 16. These dudes are making excuses for them. Well, you go, all the NBA players, they're favored by 43.5 and they win by 1 point. You need to understand. There it is, South Sudan. My bad. What I call them, South Senegal? Whatever. Basically the same thing, right? But this is the thing, fellas. The world is catching up. That's part of it, but it's also it's a mixture of two things at once. It's the world is catching up, number one, but two, our expectations are so low of these fighters. Our expectations are so low of these athletes. Our expectations of Americans in general are so low right now. Then of course, like our standing in the world is diminishing because it's two things at once. It's the world's catching up. Our world is no longer in awe of us. And the little expectations we have of people, they're not even meeting those. And boxing is a microcosm of that. So when you say Inoue versus Junto is the biggest fight that could be made in boxing next year or a year and a half from now, that's going to happen. And people are going to say, American boxing fans are going to say, no, because they're midgets, number one, and they're Asian. Asian fighters aren't that big. Wake up. You got to wake up. You got to wake up. Get with the times, because I'm telling you, we're in different times. But Junto, I'm telling you, he's the real deal. And we've been saying that for a couple of years here. He's the real deal. Boxing is exploding in Japan. And Inoue versus Junto is going to be like the climax of that. Pause. It's going to be like a climax of that. And Junto is in a great spot too, because he's in between two weight classes where you have Bam Rodriguez, who is a budding star, and Inoue, who is already a star. And Inoue is saying he's going to stay at 122, Bam at 115. Junto is going to unify at 118. All these guys are going to stay in their weight classes and do weight class business, and we'll see what develops there. And it's a beautiful picture that's developing down there. And Junto's right in the middle of it. This guy is positioned well to be a star, and he's also positioned well to possibly become the pound for pound king if he can win those fights. And that's the big if. Can he win those fights? Can he beat Bam? Can he beat Inoue? It's a big if. Big if. But if he can, whew. But he's got it all. He's got it all. Trained by Rudy Hernandez, he's got it all. So we'll see how that develops, but not much to the fight. Knocked him out right away. I won my Junto Nakatani 1 through 6 prop bet, and we moved on. And another prop bet that I won was Jake Paul KO. And Jake Paul KO, I'm telling y'all right now, if y'all learn one thing from me right now, Jake Paul KO prop bet against MMA fighters is a sure thing. Like go heavy on it. And that dude knocks out MMA fighters or bare knuckle boxing fighters, whatever this guy was. I've never seen the dude fight, and I didn't need to. I knew this guy's not a boxer. Jake Paul is a good enough boxer to knock these guys out, and that's what he does. Jake Paul is an entertaining fighter. Jake Paul is a guy who brings out fans. He's the one who understands the gift of gab. He understands ring entrances. So we can do this thing. I see boxing nerd journalists out there penning articles about how this is terrible for the sport. Oh my God. It's so terrible for the sport because Jake Paul doesn't take the fight seriously and he's a YouTube guy and he's just not serious for the sport and this is bad for the sport. And, you know, and the WBC is saying that they could possibly fake Chavez Jr. for a belt. Dude, Riley Romero fought for a belt against Ismael Barroso, who is 83 years old. And they expect me to care about that. It's like, where were you guys at? Where were you guys out calling that out? Where were you? These boxing writers are asleep at the wheel when boxing's power brokers rape and pillage the sport and destroy the sport. And boxing is hurting boxing. UFC is not hurting boxing. Boxing's hurting boxing. Jake Paul's not hurting boxing. Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson is not a black eye for boxing. Jake Paul versus Diaz or whoever he fights is not terrible for the sport. What's terrible for the sport is the sport. Write articles about that. Write articles about how we have 13 belts in the whole country right now. 13 major belts, whatever it is, 14 maybe. Write about that. Instead, you're going to write an article about Jake Paul and Chavez Jr. What the hell are you doing? If I was an editor, like a editor or an owner of a website, and some writer came to me and said they were going to write an article about how Jake Paul's terrible, I would fire that guy on the spot. Get away. Get out of here. What are you doing? Leave. No. Jake Paul's not bad for the sport. I don't mind Jake Paul. He's entertaining. I don't expect him to do anything. I don't expect him to win major title. I don't expect him to beat Jaya Opataya, but he's fun. And I don't expect him to grow boxing either. That's the thing. He just is what he is, man. Enjoy it and make money off of it. It's easy. Like, bet Jake Paul KO if he fights an MMA fighter. I'm just telling you. The odds makers, for whatever reason, haven't caught up to it. It was minus 105. Easy bet. But he's not going to grow the sport either. It's like when people were saying, I remember during the lockdown. I don't know if y'all remember this. And they did this golf match between, I think it was Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. And they say, oh, Peyton Manning and Tom Brady is going to bring eyes to the sport of golf and it's going to grow golf. And it didn't, because people were just tuning in to see Peyton Manning and Tom Brady swing some golf clubs. That's all it did. And it's the same thing with Jake Paul. People are tuning in to see Jake Paul throw some fists, and they're not sticking around to see anything else. It's just Jake Paul. They're invested in Jake Paul. He built this brand. They'll follow him wherever. It's that simple. Like, it just is what it is. There's no need to write an article about it, is my point. He is who he is. Erickson Lubin, I told y'all Erickson Lubin is pump faking. He doesn't want the fade. That fight wasn't going to happen. So Erickson Lubin, apparently he's not medically fit to fight the fight. So they're not going to fight the fight. So tune in for Tim Zoo News. It should be coming soon on an opponent, but it's not Erickson Lubin. And that's that. That's that as far as that goes. Inoue versus Junto will be the modern day Hagler Hearns. Tell that to Chicano. Chicano's out here hating on Junto. He's out here hating on Junto. Jake Paul saved American boxing. Let's see. Mike Perry was a striker in the UFC, and he's a bare knuckle fighting champion. He's not a wrestler, Cal. Whatever he is, I don't know, but he's Mike Perry, and he was gonna get knocked out. That's it. Like Jake Paul knocks out non-boxers. There. He knocks out former point guards in the NBA. He knocks out wrestlers. He knocks out strikers. He knocks out bare knuckle boxers. That's who he knocks out. And he does. He does it reliably. He knocks those guys out. So all I'm saying is have fun with it, bet on it, and enjoy it. I'm not trying to ruin anybody's party. I'm more making fun of the guys who are. Stop trying to ruin people's party. Like, people enjoy watching Jake Paul fight. Let him do that. And of all the ills in boxing, if you're gonna end up on Jake Paul is hurting this sport, if you're gonna end up on Jake Paul possibly fighting for a title, look at all the atrocious things the WBC has done to this sport. And like, you think Jake Paul possibly fighting Chavez Jr. for some sort of fake Reggie title is the worst thing they've ever done? I'm here for it. Give me that. Give me Jake Paul. I've been saying this for like 3 years now. I've been telling D-Stylists, that's the fight. Make that fight. Jake Paul versus Chavez Jr. That's the fight. That's the fight to make. Make that fight. They need to make the fight. Make the fight. And make it for the title. Make it for the cruiserweight WBC. I don't know. What can we call that, chat? What can we call that belt? Cruiserweight WBC. I don't know. Just come up with a name for it. Just come up with a name for it and make that. He's ready. He's ready. Chicano's ready. He's ready for the smoke. And I don't want the smoke. I want peace. I'm just warning y'all right now. I want peace. Heads up. I want peace. So I'm minding my business today, as I always do. That's how this always starts, right? I'm just minding my business, drinking my water, minding my business. And there we go. We got a name for it. Cruiserweight Diamond Silver Aztec Warrior Belt. There we go. I like that, JC. Let's make Jake Paul versus Chavez Jr. and make it for that belt. All right, so I'm minding my business, and I'm scrolling through my Twitter feed, and I see Canelo versus Berlanga, September 14th at the T-Mobile Arena in Vegas, which is a terrible arena, by the way. If you've been there, it's just not a good boxing venue, but that's where they're fighting. And that's what we got, right? We got Canelo versus Berlanga September 14th. So what do we know? We know he's going up against the UFC at the Sphere. That we know. What we've also learned is, what did I say? What have I made clear? I wanted to make this clear that I wanted to see Canelo versus Benavidez, and I wanted to see Bud versus Boots. But I also made clear that if Canelo fights a fight with Berlanga, it's acceptable on certain terms. It's acceptable on 3 terms, right? And the 3 terms will be: you put the fight where it belongs, you barnstorm, right? You put it where it belongs, you put it on the regular subscription instead of pay-per-view, and you make it clear that this is a tune-up. You make it clear that it's a tune-up. So, number one is they've got that wrong, because it's not in the right spot, because this isn't a Vegas fight. This isn't a Vegas fight. It's just not. Canelo versus Berlanga is just not a Vegas fight. It's a New York fight, but if you do a fight like this, you got to get creative with the location. Number one, there are ways you can make this acceptable, fellas. There are ways you can make this tolerable, palatable for the market. One, you could do it at the right location. You could do it at Madison Square Garden, Mexico versus Puerto Rico. Number two, you can make it clear it's a tune-up, And this used to be done all the time, fellas. We talked about Oscar versus Stevie Forbes. Oscar used to do these fights in between all the time. And this used to happen, right? And what it is we used to have a market in which there were pay-per-view value fights. There were pay-per-view fights, not pay-per-view fighters. And now we've gone to a place where there are pay-per-view fighters. And when you do that, then every fight is a pay-per-view, no matter who it is. And that's not good. Because despite what the power brokers will tell me on Twitter or on Elon's X, there are pay-per-view value fights and there are fights that are not pay-per-view value. I don't care what they tell me about. You got to do it because of this and that and that. If you want to see your favorite fight, I don't care. I don't care. To me, Bud versus Madrimov is not a pay-per-view value main event. It's just not. I don't know. But maybe my expectations are too high once again. But it's clear that Canelo versus Berlanga is not a pay-per-view fight. We all know that. We all know that. And some of us are going to buy it despite that, in spite of that. And that's fine. That's perfectly fine. You have the right to do whatever you want as a consumer. It's what I said before Canelo versus Ryder. I'm sure y'all remember me saying that is, for me, it's pay-per-view worthy. I'm going to buy it. But I can totally understand if you don't think it is. Here, I think we all feel like this isn't a pay-per-view worthy fight. Some of us will buy it in spite of that, and you have every right to do that. You have every right to do that. For me, for the first time since I can remember, I mean, I can remember all the way back to him fighting, Canelo fighting Carlos Baldemir on Sergio Mora versus Shane Mosley undercard. And I've seen every fight since. I can't remember not watching a Canelo fight live. And this is likely the first one where I can say I won't. Because when you put it on pay-per-view, it becomes something different. You've heard me say that many times. It becomes something completely different. Something completely different. It's an added price point. You're putting it behind another paywall. You have the subscription paywall, and then you have an added paywall behind it. So you're expecting something with that. And to me, this isn't even close to that. So it doesn't meet any one of those criteria because you can't put a tune-up on pay-per-view. You just can't. But it's this market as a whole is now they're putting tune-ups on pay-per-view. This isn't a Canelo thing, and they'll blast Canelo for this, and Canelo solely, and they'll let Tank off the hook. They'll let other fighters off the hook, right, for doing similar things. And it's because they hold Canelo to higher standards, right? And they're not honest about why they do that. We've talked about that. But that doesn't excuse this move. I don't know how else to say this. This isn't recognizable to me as a Canelo fan. It's just when Canelo says, I don't care, I'm going to do what I want. I just figure that's posturing. I figure that's tactics to make certain fights. I don't expect him to mean it. But when I see this move here, he's backing it up. He's saying, I don't care. What he's saying is, yeah, I understand nobody's demanding Canelo versus Berlanga because he understands the market. We know that. We know that from his past actions. He understands the market. So he knows Canelo versus Berlanga is not in demand. And he understands it's a tune-up fight. So what he's saying here is, I don't care about the market. I'm going to do it anyway. And on top of that, I'm going to tax the market for it. I'm going to offload this fight onto the consumer. I'm going to make them pay for my high minimum when we should be meeting in the middle here, is what I'm saying. Should be meeting in the middle. I understand Canelo has built up equity, all this stuff, but we should be meeting in the middle, right? It should be what Oscar did for Stevie Forbes, right? The Forbes fight. It's like, I understand this ain't the fight, but I need to knock off some ring rust. I need to stay active. So guess what? I need to fight a smaller fighter. So guess what? We'll do this fight. We'll meet in the middle though. I'm not going to charge you. We're not going to put this at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Vegas. This isn't a Vegas fight, clearly. So we're going to do it in LA where it belongs. And you're getting for close to free. $5, $10, come on in. Let's fill this place up. Let's have a good time. Have some beer. Look at some big booty Latinas, mariachi music. Let's have a blast. Let's have a blast here. And you're not going to have to pay pay-per-view because it's not a pay-per-view fight. And we all understand that. We know what that means. We can pretend like we don't, but we know what that means. We know what pay-per-view value is. But in contrast, what Canelo's doing is saying, take that. You're going to pay for it. We are going to put it in Vegas because I need the live gate. I need my money. I need my 30 million for the fight. I can do it. And you're just going to have to take that. And that's why. I don't know, man. I don't know. I've talked about how Canelo has built an organic fan base. The media didn't build Canelo. And by the way, I'm just preface this. I'm a Canelo fan, and I'll continue to be. This doesn't erase the history. This doesn't erase the fan base he built. This doesn't erase the great times we've had. All that stuff, right? His haters are going to try to erase everything he's done before because he fights Berlanga, and that's what you open yourself up to. Right? He's going to have to deal with that. But I've talked about how he built the organic fan base. The media didn't. So only he can detach himself from that. And with moves like this is where you start to see that detachment. And it's him detaching himself from his base. And you see it with the numbers, fellas, is the PBC lies about the numbers that their fighters have done in the past. I would argue that we've seen in real time the numbers gradually go down. And it's the market telling him something. The market saying, we want one of these big fights. Look, Mel's good. Ryder's good. Munguia's good. But that's not the fights we want. So you're going to have to give us the fights we want if you want to separate us from our money and continue this relationship. And the longer that you go on, the more you get into that area, that weird area where it's like, do I want to still be here? Like, other people are giving me other stuff. You got, other people climbing into the pound for pound rankings, putting on great performances. And, Berlanga, really? Berlanga. So now we're getting into that weird territory, is what I'm saying. And the longer this goes on, Berlanga, if you do it the right way, once again, it's palatable. But Berlanga on pay-per-view in Vegas, good Lord. That's so bad, man. Like, that stinks to high heaven. We got to be honest about that. And I think there likely is. I think Canelo versus Bud is coming in the winter. I think that's the fight. I think they do that December and January. But you have to make that known. We got to deal with what is right now. We're at the point now where we can't be as trustworthy. So is the fight coming December, January? And once again, why do I have to pay for this if it's clearly a tune-up? Berlanga? Fellas, this dude is the super middleweight version of Rolly Romero. And we trashed Rolly Romero before the Tank fight, and rightfully so. And we trashed Rolly getting a title shot against Ishmael Barroso. Good Lord, man, this sport. This dude's the same. Like, I mean, he's barely better than Riley Romero. Riley Romero's the worst title holder I've ever seen, I think. And Berlanga's barely better than him, pound for pound. Barely. I think barely. And this dude, man, like, he thinks he's in a terror squad. He's still got a fade with a line in his hair. He's still wearing Timberland boots and Rocawear. Like, what the hell? What the hell is this? And Canelo's going to fight him on pay-per-view in Vegas. Man, like, this is what I wrote earlier on Elon's X. The trend of the market pushing back on Canelo pay-per-views is twofold. Because, like I said, I think that's what's happening. The market's starting to push back. The macro market doesn't align, number one, with the surplus of pay-per-views boxing's power brokers are pushing on its consumer base. And the economy is terrible. People are tapped out. It doesn't look like it's going to get better, because I don't think it will, fellas. And anytime soon. And you continue to offload your terrible business decisions onto your dwindling American boxing fan base. And the bad news here is Turkey Al-Sheikh is also guilty of this. Bud versus Madrimov is not pay-per-view worthy either. The Saudis also have their weaknesses, and you'd be naive to view Turkey as a boxing savior figure. And I hope I'm wrong with that. On that, Turkey is a disruptor. I like disruptors. I'm drawn to disruptors. It's good. And disruptors have to have a vacuum in the market. And there's clearly a vacuum here because, once again, the power brokers are not understanding that the market is tapped out on a macro level. Everybody's living paycheck to paycheck to paycheck to paycheck. Everybody's struggling, almost everybody. And you continue to raise the price of the brick. It's boxing's version of inflation. Inflation's everywhere, right? Nothing's affordable. And boxing is just following that trend. And the power brokers are saying, we're going to continue doing what we're doing. You're just going to have to pay more for it. Because we're not going to deviate from what we're doing. The boxers want to get paid more than ever. We want to get paid more than ever. The networks want to get paid more than ever. So you're the ones that have to pay for it. You have to pay more. You have to offset this huge overhead for us to keep this Ponzi scheme running. And what I'm saying is, I have every right to complain about that, number one. And number two, I expect a certain value of a fight. The higher the price of the fight, the higher the value of the fight should be. And if you give me Canelo versus Berlanga, it's like, no. No. Sorry. Oh, I'm going to call that out. I'm not going to lose my credibility. No, man. Like, I know I run the risk of losing people here. I know, look, we're all friends here, and a lot of us are Canelo fans, but look, man, like, we got to call this what it is. This ain't it. This ain't it. It ain't it. Number two, on the micro level, as I just explained, Canelo organically built his base. And that's great. He built the best base and fan base in the sport of boxing. He is the face of boxing still. He still is. You know, he's losing that a little bit, but luckily for him, it's a short bus fest out there in boxing. He doesn't have much competition. The business of the sport is so terrible that we're incapable of building stars anymore. So luckily for Canelo, as he just doesn't have much competition because, like I said, it's a short bus fest. And now he's slowly shedding that base by not behaving like the fighter his fans fell in love with. And that's what I'm trying to explain to you is this move right here. If it is consummated, if they do announce it as an Amazon, DAZN, pay-per-view, $74.99, whatever they're going to price it at, even if they price it at $50, fellas, it's still pricing this. It's still a pay-per-view. That's unrecognizable to a lot of us. Like, that's not something we would expect Canelo to do. We would not expect Canelo to say, I can do whatever I want, and you're going to have to deal with it. and then offload that onto his fans. We would not expect that. And that's where we are if they announce this fight this way. This notion that Canelo's fans are zombie that will blindly support anything he does is only true for a percentage of his base. And that there is a percentage of that out there. We know those people. They're going to support whatever Canelo says. They're going to explain it away. But I don't think that percentage is as high as people make it out to be. I just don't. His pay-per-view numbers continue to decline, and Canelo versus Berlanga will likely be the least bought of his career, and I do think it will be. I don't think this fight's going to sell well. As Mr. Yellow says, I think it'll do triple pubic hair. I think it's going to do double wood, and it's going up against the UFC in Vegas at the Sphere. And we can say what we want. That is now a battle. And they're not going to take into account, they're not going to put it in proper perspective. And this is what Canelo's opened himself up to, is they're not going to put it into proper perspective that it is Berlanga. That's Canelo's B-side. If UFC sells one pay-per-view higher than Canelo, then there's going to be seen as this is a new sheriff in town. Mexican Independence Day now belongs to the UFC. And you can say what you want, that Canelo had to fight for that weekend against the UFC. Good luck, man. He better win that battle. He better win that battle. The data supports that we're seeing a pushback from people who have loyally supported him in the past. And I think that pushback will continue. I do. And let me say this too, man. Well, let me preface it with this, because I also tweeted this. Canelo and Benavidez ain't throwing down. They're not fighting. Canelo fighting the super middleweight version of Rolly Romero on pay-per-view instead. Benavidez and Morrell Jr. aren't fighting each other, even though Morrell Jr. chased him up a weight class. We'd be naive at the current time to think a team that admitted to marinating a Caleb Plant fight for 5 years is serious about fighting a Bivol better Biev winner anytime in the near future. This is such an unserious sport. This whole thing, fellas, this whole situation around 168 surrounding it the past year and a half or so with Canelo and Benavidez stinks to high heaven, and it's all become a mess. And everybody involved should be raked over the coals for it. And nobody should be, none of them should be exempt of being raked over the coals for it. I don't care who they are. I like some of them. I dislike the other ones. They all should get the smoke here. I didn't see any improvement. He's going to get squashed by the UFC. Canelo looked good against Munguia. I thought he did too. I thought Canelo looked good against Munguia. I still think he's got a good bit left in the tank. Janovic versus Munguia. That's a possibility down the line. It is. Munguia and Billy, another possibility down the line. And look, man, I'm not, y'all know, I've gone up to the Bud super fans too recently. I'm not making any friends here. Bud versus Madrimov's not a pay-per-view either. It's a better fight. It is. I think it's a better fight, but it's not a pay-per-view. We all know what a pay-per-view value fight is, and the market's going to dictate what a pay-per-view value fight is, and it has to meet the overhead. It has to be in the green. But Benavidez does this thing where he's got an interim belt at 168, 175 because the WBC is short bus too. Like, once again, WBC is just... And Benavidez has the worst team imaginable. Just an awful, awful group of individuals guiding this guy's career. Awful. Just terrible, terrible, terrible people guiding this guy's career. And it's made this thing even more of a mess to follow. It's all too confusing. And Canelo, they create this scenario in which Canelo is going to fight Vodzik with a silent G. And after he fights Vodzik with a silent G, he's going to decide if he wants to fight, if he wants to keep the interim belt at 175 or 168. And first of all, why the hell is there an interim belt to begin with? What is this? What is this? What is an interim champion? A champion in recess. A regular champion. We used to joke about this with the silver champions and the diamond champions. What is this stuff? And that's why I just start to cheer for Turkey to just take this over and buy all these out and consolidate the belts and delete some of this stuff. Just get rid of it. Just delete this stuff. And take the dude that runs the WB, Suleiman, and just put him out of business. For the love of God, just put this dude out of business. Interim belts. And not only their interim belts, one guy's got two of them. He's got two interim belts. You're like, number one, how is there an interim belt? And number two, how does this guy have two of them? He's got multiple interim belts. So he's an interim champion in multiple weight classes. Like, what kind of achievement is that? We've heard of a fighter being a multi-weight champ. This dude's a multi-weight interim champion. And nobody's like joking about it. They're praising him. Right? He's an interim champion in two weight. So what? He's an interim champion in two weight classes. So now he gets to decide if he wants to be the interim champion or mandatory in 168 or 175. And the dude weighs 225. I'm looking at his Instagram and it's like, this dude, how is this dude getting down to 168? Clearly he's not going to stay at 168. So it doesn't surprise me at all to see that he decides, just like the Bachelor, right? He's got to decide. She's got to decide who she's going to give the rose to, And that's like David. He's going to decide on Instagram. Does he want to grab the interim belt at 168 or 170? So we're all, the boxing nerds on Twitter are like, I wonder which one he's going to pick. I wonder which one. I'm like, he's fat. He's going to pick the bigger one. Because duh. Like, what are we doing here? He's going to pick the bigger one. He's fat. So which one's he going to pick? He's going to pick 168 or 175. Man, I can't. And these dudes are like waiting for the deadline. They're like, the deadline's today. Oh my God, the deadline's today. David's going to pick. And today? And like the deadline was last week, so he didn't even meet the deadline. And Samson Lukowicz sends a letter to Suleiman saying they're going to stay at 175. And I want you to pay attention to the timeline here. Because once again, this is Benavidez's team being slick. And this is how this stuff happens. And it's all an optics move, right? And I want people to understand something. Just like D-Style has said, D-Style has said he's a fan of both. And there's no problem with being a fan of both. And I agree. You want to be a fan of both, be a fan of both. You can. We're treating this like Bloods versus Crips. But I also want to throw it out there that the opposite. I can criticize both because both deserve a lot of criticism right now. I don't care what Benavidez decides to do because dudes are going to do this thing right now where they say, which one came first, the chicken or the egg? Which one came first? The chicken or the egg? Or whatever they say, whatever the term is. I don't even know what the term is. Which one came first? Which one's to blame? And I'm telling you, they're both to blame. I'm telling you, I'm exhausted with this. I'm telling you, I'm over it. And I'm frustrated with both of them. I'm frustrated with both sides for putting us through this as consumers. And this is why I love the lower weight class. Dudes wonder, why you have such a hard on for Junto and Bam? Pause. It's because they don't put me through this. That's why I like the lower weight classes. It resembles a sport. I don't have to hear about the B side, the A side, and the interim belts, and the champion, and the recess, and which one's the guy going to pick. He's going to pick. We got a 10-day deadline. It's a 10-day deadline, guys. It's a 10-day deadline. He's got a deadline. Which interim belts he going to pick? This dude's got 2 interim belts. What lower weight class guy has 2 interim belts? What is this? And then 40-60, and then the 95-5 split, 90-10. I don't have to hear about that in the lower weight classes. It's so refreshing to see dudes just fight. I don't have to hear about that stuff. But what I'm telling you is both of them deserve criticism, right? But Benavidez's team, good Lord. You talk about a short bus team. And the optics of this is this. It's Canelo announces his fight with Berlanga, and it's like an hour after. Surprise! We're moving to 175. Surprise! And if you have any kind of critical thinking skills, you know what that is. It's an optics move. It's an optics move. They want you to believe that they were waiting to see what Canelo's going to do. We're going to wait to see what Canelo's going to do, and then we're going to decide. When they've been knowing for a month, Dan Rayfield's out there saying they've been working on Canelo versus Berlanga for 4 weeks or whatever he said. But it's been a while they've been working on this fight, and it's not to the finish line yet, but it'll get there. So this isn't anything new to that team. They've been knowing what Canelo's going to do for a month, but they've been waiting till this leaks, till they go, because they want the optics of Canelo's not going to fight me, so we're going to go to 175, and we want all the smoke up there, right? It's an optics move, and it's smart, to be honest. I got to give them that. At least they're smart about that, because they won the optics game there. And this is what you have to be honest about if you're a Canelo fan, is this is the precedent that has been set, is if you're the A side, you're the one who has to make the fight. And Canelo's the A side here, so you got to be honest about this. You got to be honest about this. He's going to take a lot of the blame for the fight not getting made. And Benavidez moving up to 175, even though Benavidez's team is part of the problem too. Edwin Castillo, $5 super chat. Fam, the Mexican is the Mexican extension Benavidez is no monster. He's just a menstrual monster, and always remember, he's never wanted the Canelo smoke. Laughing emojis. And once again, Benavidez's team is just beyond. Just beyond. It's so frustrating, man, because you see these fighters and they have promise. And Nando, I got to give him credit because he's the first person I just saw say this, and I'm like, yes, I should have said that. I wish I would have said that. I wish I could give myself credit for saying that. But he said this dude didn't need Canelo to be a star. He's exciting. He's marketable. His team gets in the way, but he seems like a likable dude until he's not. There's something there, and then he could have been a star before Canelo, without Canelo, with or without him. And it's just frustrating because with the PBC fighters in particular, you want to like dudes over there. You want to support them, and then it's just their team is just, it's such a mess. So now what we have is Canelo versus fighting Berlanga on pay-per-view in Vegas, which is just a giant turd. All right, like a stinking turd. And hopefully We get Canelo versus Bud up out after that, which wasn't my preference of a fight, but they want to do it. That's fine. And winner, I hope we get there. And then now where we sit with Benavidez is we have to hope that a team, and we have to trust that a team who openly admitted to marinating their only top 5, top 10 win at 168, because Boo Boo Andre, remember, he was coming up from middleweight. Their only top 10 win there. They admitted to marinating it 5 years so they could maximize the value of a fight that did 49,000 pay-per-view buys. Because of course. And dudes are out there thinking that's a genius move. Genius. We sacrificed the superstardom of a fighter so we could maximize the value of a single fight. Of course, it's an intelligent move. Smart. But now we have to trust that team when they say that we're exercising our option at 175, which is just an option for the interim belt, is an option for mandatory. Who the hell knows what this is? It's all so convoluted and stupid. Now we're going to exercise that option so we can fight the B-Vol better BF winner. And now we have to trust that dude's actually going to do that without the track record of doing stuff like that. There's no track record of it, fellas. Plant and Boo Boo, that was a good year last year. It was a good year. Good. Not great. Good. In an 8-9 year career, it's his only good year. And dudes are acting like they once again, man, it's the American boxing fan mentality. Is they treat these dudes like they're toddlers. It's like he's going up to 175 to fight Vodzik with the silent G. Oh my God. What a boss move. What a boss. He's fighting Vodzik. He's pushing 40. He's washed up. And I said this before the fight. I'm not making this up now. He's washed up. And we saw that in this fight. Benavidez looked so damn sloppy the second half of the fight. And Vodzik was so washed up, he couldn't take advantage of it. They're treating these dudes like toddlers, these American fighters. And now Vodzik, he's making boss moves now because he stepped up to 175. He's not going to wait around for Canelo. He's not going to do it. He's moving up to fight at 175 to fight Vodzik. All right, we'll go do it. We'll do it. But at the same time, he's incessantly talking about Canelo, and that's fine. Call him out, call him a duck, do whatever you want to do. But as Nando said, you could be a star without that dude by now, and you can get on with it. But he's fighting Vodzik with a silent G, and I'm supposed to be excited about that and act like this is some sort of great win, and he looks like the greatest fighter of all time, the greatest pressure fighter of all. Look at the combination punches he's putting together. Oh, my God. And he's looking sloppy. The second half of the fight, this dude looked like a wounded deer. Mouth wide open. And I'm saying to myself, Canelo, please go fight this dude. Like, let's just get this over. Can you please go fight this dude? Because I'm so sick of this. And, of course, he fights Berlanga instead. On pay-per-view. And clearly Turkey isn't wild about Benavidez either, because he'd rather see Canelo versus Bud than Canelo versus Benavidez. Fair enough. If you want to see Canelo versus Bud first, and I got news for, this is where we go back and forth, right? Because I got news for the Benavidez fans and Canelo haters is when Canelo versus Bud is signed, which I think it will be for the winter, then that's going to be viewed as a legacy fight. It will. And at that point, Benavidez is going to have to fight the B-Vol versus better BF winner. He's going to have to get to it. He's going to have to get to it. But I can tell you what he can do in the meantime. Because when they say they're going to fight the Bivol better be a winner. I don't really believe it. I don't trust the track record. But I'll tell you what they can do in the meantime. I could tell you what's a marketable fight. I could tell you what's a makeable fight. Is Benavidez versus Morrell Jr. Morrell Jr. is about to fight in LA, August 3rd. He's fighting on Turk Yalashik's card. I'm sure they can get funding for Benavidez versus Morrell Jr. And oh, by the way, the same thing you say about Canelo when it comes to Benavidez, you can say when it comes to Benavidez versus Morrell Jr. Morrell Jr. has been calling Benavidez out for a couple of years now. Morrell Jr. is seen as the biggest threat to Benavidez at 168. So what does Benavidez do? He moves to 175 to fight Bodzik instead of fighting Morrell Jr. at 168. So what does Morrell Jr. do? He decides to move up to 175 to stalk Benavidez and says, I want the Benavidez fight. Morrell Jr. does not mention Canelo. He says, I want Benavidez. I want Benavidez. I want Benavidez. So in the meantime, Benavidez needs another fight in 2024. Bivol and better be ever busy. And this is when the Benavidez fans are going to come after me. Why do you want to see him get beat? I don't want to see him get beat. It's clear to me at this point that Canelo Benavidez isn't happening. So if you want to say Canelo is ducking Benavidez, go ahead. Have at it. Have at it. Canelo has opened himself up to that. Have at it. But your excuse for a couple of years now, when it comes to Morrell Jr., is you guys just want Morrell Jr. Benavidez Morrell Jr. so Morrell Jr. can beat Benavidez and you don't have to hear about one. No, because if Morrell Jr. beats Benavidez, then now Morrell Jr. is the boogeyman that Canelo needs to fight. Number one. Number two, now Canelo versus Benavidez is off the table. It's off the table. And guess what? I still want to see it. But you just want to see him lose before he gets to Bivol. Why would I want to do that? I don't even like Bivol. Can't stand the dude. He's got the personality of drywall. He's about as fun to watch as Shakur. I don't care. I just want to see the fights. I mean, why can't Crawford fight Boots? And fellas, can somebody in the chat please tell him that the last live I did, I asked the same question. Can somebody in the chat tell this dude who I want Bud to fight next? And this is the thing, fellas. This is what's aggravating. This is what's frustrating. Is you get on here and you call it like you see it. And you call it like it is. And you don't behave like a fan of a certain fighter. You're not going to explain away. Like, you've seen these channels, right? You've seen these channels. It's all Benavidez all the time, or all Canelo all the time, or it's all Boots all the time, all Bud all the time, all Devin Haney all the time. And they come there expecting that, right? But the problem is, I'll call out Canelo tonight, and I had it on Twitter earlier. I'll call out Canelo for fighting Berlanga or Bumlanga, as Jesus said earlier. And now I'm called a Canelo hater. And part of it is some Canelo fans may be frustrated with me now, or generally what it is people just, they don't tune into your stuff before. So they're new here and they just assume that you're a Canelo hater. And clearly people know my track record that that's not true. And then you can say, I've been a Bud fan for 12 years, but the people new will think that I'm hating on Bud. So this dude will show up in the chat and say, why aren't you calling out Bud to fight Boots? I have been. How many times do I have to say it? Bud should fight Boots. Fight him next. How many times have I said, Canelo, Benavidez, fight. Bud, Boots, fight. Those are the fights I'd rather see than you guys dancing around this and then doing this novelty fight of guy at 168 versus a guy at 154. How about you just fight the guys in your weight class? For the love of God, man, this is so frustrating. Can you do sack up? Can some of you do sack up and act like grown men and adults? Why don't you call out this guy for that? I have. It's like Leonard Ellerby. What about Bevo? How about you check my tweet from 2 minutes ago when I called out Bevo? How about that? How about you open your eyes, open your ears? Can you dudes sack up and act like grown men? These fighters are younger than you. They don't know you exist. Canelo doesn't know I exist. Why in the hell would I get on here and hang on Canelo's nuts for no reason? He shouldn't be fighting Berlanga on pay-per-view in Las Vegas. How difficult is that for you to say? Say it, because it's common sense. The dude should not be fighting Berlanga on pay-per-view in Las Vegas. I know he did. And it's like another dude did this to me earlier. He's like, why didn't you call out Tank fighting Raleigh? Dude, I did it 73,000 times. How many times have you heard me say Tank aged out Loma? You've been hearing me say it for a half a decade, if you've been around. You dudes, man, like, yeah, y'all. I don't understand. I don't understand. I don't get the mentality. I don't understand it. And you can go to a safe place. They're out there. And the good news for those people is those are the ones doing the numbers. Those are the ones who have 200 people on their lives, 150 people in their lives. And they're going to tell you Canelo is fine and Benavidez sucks. And they're going to tell you what you want to hear. And they're going to continue to do that. And they're going to get the clicks. That's the safe space. I don't understand. I don't understand this whole market. I don't get it. I don't know, man. Good Lord. I'm out.